Oh my gosh. Mr. Chair, we are live now.
Robin will call the roll.
Secretary Isaac. Commissioner.
Present.
Commissioner Foil. Here. Chair Bacher.
Present.
Chair Business. Commissioner Bertolo. Here. Commissioner Schoenfeld. Here. Council Member Liaison Mabry.
Here.
Council Member Liaison Rambo.
Here.
HPC Advisor Scott. And our youth member Raghu Raman is not with us. And our Commissioner Board. Here. And Wildwood Historical Society Liaison Von Gruben.
Here.
Jill, are you with us?
Here.
Well, I see her on Zoom, Mr. Chair, so I'm going to mark her present.
We have a quorum.
We do.
Thank you. Thank you. Kurt will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Are in front of you. I hope you've had an opportunity to look at them in our delay here. And I could see nothing that needed to be added or deleted. If you do, please respond now. Otherwise, they will stand approved as presented. Anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes? There being none, they stand approved as published. Thank you. Public comment. Is there anyone for public comment? Robin?
Mr. Chair, I do see one raised hand, so I'm going to promote them now.
Are they connected or?
Mr. Chair, they are on Zoom with us now.
Hello.
Let me make a comment at this time.
That's better. Can you turn that up a little? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Just a moment.
That's better, much better. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say hooray, hooray for the HBC because you were wonderful with the parade. I was so excited for all of us. So I'm glad to be watching and hearing what all's going on tonight. And thanks to everyone for the cards and emails I've received. Thank you.
Our cheerleader, thank you. Anything from the Historical Society that we should be aware of?
I have a couple comments. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First, I have a update for Celebrate Wildwood from the Historical Society standpoint. We had a lot of activity and traffic in the tent, as I observed as I was taking care of the book. They were drawn in by our new Route 66 posters, which are based on the 2026 calendar, which we had ready to distribute. We also have a new poster that talks about our mission statement, which is basically protect, preserve, and educate. And then became the transformation of the rain, and that required that group, our group, to close up shop for the day. Everything survived well. Some of our older posters had sustained some of the damage. And just a couple of other observations, if I may, just because it's hard for me to jump in on Zoom, is that it's so important, and you all get it, but not everyone else gets it, is when we talk about why somebody asks, why is it important to preserve our history? Why do you talk about it all the time? Why should we do this? And I go back to being the author person, and you always want to answer the who, what, where, and when. That's what everybody thinks of when they think about history, but it's that why that's so important. Why did people come? Why did people stay? If they left, why did they go? And if they came back, why did they come back? So it's those whys, whether it's the story that's 190 years old or whether it's a story from a year ago. Those are the things that drive our history. And that's why it's important, because if we answer those questions, it helps plan for the future. And then, as all of you know, I got the amazing opportunity to be at the National World War II Museum at the beginning of the month. And my biggest takeaway from being there is that all history, the study of history, is historic preservation. It's an action verb. It's not a static situation. So if you're taking a subject and presenting it within the worlds or the nations or the local events and drill it down to the why, it makes it very real. And what it takes when it makes from reality to making it very personal to the viewer is the personal narratives and how they're presented. That makes the presentation visceral to the observer, to the person who's in the museum or looking at posters or whatever venue media that an organization wants to use. And does it make a difference that the National World War II Museum has these top people in the world working for them and are the top of their game at what they do? But again, yes, it does. But again, it basically comes down to, why is that experience going to that museum different than watching a movie about World War II? It's the fact that the whys are combined with the personal narratives. So that brings us to us, the historic Merrimack Township, the city of Wildwood. The whys are critical, and the personal narratives that we have collected and that we're sharing through our book are just some, take it from just some stories to the reality that's tied to the buildings, the homes, and the very land. So I personally feel very privileged to be part of all of this, to be preserving and teaching. And so that all these stories are important because we're talking about the why. Why did people come and why did they stay? So thanks for all of the opportunities. That's it.
You for your reminders and for your help and for all that you continue to do, Jill. You're a treasure to us as well.
Thank you.
We'll move on to old business. And the Essen Log Cabin is on the top of the heap. Heard there was a little consternation and we came out okay, thanks to one of our members.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the department has a request respectfully. If we could move the agenda item relating to the JP Connell House to the first item on tonight's agenda, it would be much appreciated. We have a representative from the owner under contract, Ms. Gruey here. And instead of maybe having her sit through an extended discussion on some of the items, if we maybe could move forward with that particular one. That does require a motion and a second and a majority voice vote to amend the agenda. So the department would respectfully request such.
Is there a motion? Someone moved that we change the agenda? Is there a second? Any opposition? The agenda is changed.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
all for accommodating my request. and allowing us to discuss the JP Connell House. The Department of Planning has prepared for your consideration tonight a memorandum that summarizes several years of discussions relating to this particular historic asset, the JP Connell House. As you all are aware, it's located on a large property that is along Manchester Road, historic Route 66, St. Albans Road, and then the new State Route 100. It is a property that was visited by the Historic Preservation Commission back in March of 2024, when a request by St. Albans Properties was submitted for the demolition of the historic asset and several other outbuildings that were situated on the property. The owners of the property were gracious enough to extend a period of time for the city of Wildwood, primarily the Historic Preservation Commission, to undertake study of options to preserve the JP Connell House and potentially have a buyer or buyers for the property. The owners, St. Albans Properties, met with the city on 2 occasions, and ultimately the options that were presented were not satisfactory to them. Those options included zoning incentives, allowing potentially a commercial use on a residentially zoned property, and increased density of use on the residential property. Instead of 3-acre density, potentially something different. And then finally, other incentives relating to fees, permits, etc., and subdivision as well. As I mentioned, none of those were satisfactory, and more recently, the Department of Planning received a request to proceed forward with the demolition. In that period, though, a group called the Wildwood Property Sanctuary, which was Mr. Essen and Mr. Roberts, had been engaged with the owners of the property and had, in principle, reached an agreement far enough along to proceed to contract. That contract was in the works, and for the most part, as Keith and I had not heard from them in terms of had it been signed, had it proceeded forward to closing, et cetera, et cetera. And within the last few weeks, another entity approached the city, that being J.G. Gruey, which is a major commercial developer, not only here in the St. Louis region, but across the country, saying that they now had the property under contract. And they were very forthright. We want to save the JP Connell House. They would like to basically restore it, preserve it, and expand it to a certain extent to make it more viable 2025 residence for some future occupant. In that discussion, and it was a very brief discussion, but one that was very fruitful, I thought, we talked about incentives. And the principal incentive that the current owner under contract would like to have is to place the JP Connell House on the smallest lot possible. Meaning instead of a 3-acre lot or the current size of the lot, the smallest parcel of ground that could be accommodated. And it's intentional. The intent would be to minimize property taxes as part of the preservation effort. Certainly that sounded reasonable to the city, and from the standpoint of the Historic Preservation Commission and ultimately our city council, entirely doable. The remaining portion of the property would then be designated for property tax purposes as agricultural. The Grueys actually raise cattle, so it is agricultural activity. Steps-wise, the process, or in general terms, is as follows. The first step is tonight to kind of kick off the discussion with the Historic Preservation Commission. Give Ms. Gruey an opportunity to be seen and heard if she should choose tonight. She will be representing the family. And then if all goes well, the next steps at least are as follows. The department would present to the Historic Preservation Commission the proposal in some form, and we would discuss the historic land use category of the master plan. That is critical from the standpoint of the city to proceed forward with an incentive package. The fifth land use category, as we call it, or the historic land use category, it allows the city council, the planning and zoning commission, and the historic preservation commission to make changes to the other categories in the master plan for land use. In this case, the non-urban residential area, meaning we can offer those zoning and subdivision incentives. The next step under the historic land use category, if recommended by the Historic Preservation Commission, adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then ultimately endorsed and ratified by City Council, would be to place the asset on the city's register. Those two steps are integral to the incentive package. Thereafter, there may be a need for rezoning of the small parcel of ground and then the subdivision process, the platting. So as we create two lots where there is one very small for the asset and the remainder for the farm or agricultural use. So collectively, it involves the Historic Preservation Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and City Council. But as a preservation effort, you as the HPC, the commission, lead that process. And it starts here with you as members. Obviously, this is a golden opportunity. We are still within the shadow of the Mary Cliff residents being removed at the Marinus Retreat Center. We had high hopes that the J.P. Connell House through the Wildwood Property Sanctuary would not follow suit and end up with that same conclusion. The Gruys have been in Wildwood for many, many years. They own substantial properties in the city of Wildwood. They are a first-class commercial developer, and I hold high hopes that if they are interested and we can find the right set of incentives and do it in a timely manner, we will have the J.P. Connell House for a future generation. With that, Mr. Chair, Ms. Gruy would like to add anything at this time? If there are no questions of Ms. Gruy, I'll be glad to be away.
Thank you for being with us tonight.
Are there any questions of the commission members?
Is there be one owner for both parcels? Is that?
That's my understanding from talking to Mr.
Okay.
Gruy. Terry Gruy is the
Yeah.
individual we met with.
So in order to have a designation for, wouldn't it be possible for have the whole property under one as a agricultural? Like if you have a farmhouse on a farm, it's one piece of property and it's all zoned agricultural. No? Okay, okay, sorry. That's,
Thank you. Yeah. What we're finding is, regardless of if the house is in support of the agricultural activity, St. Louis County will assess the house as a residential, at a residential amount, 19% versus the 12% agricultural. So from the perspective of this proposal, the agricultural assessment is key for it to proceed forward.
Yes.
Can't hear you.
I'm on 6 acres. 3 acres is zoned as exactly the same as stated. The other 3 lays fallow as a bunch of woods. This property is how many acres total?
I'm
Well-
going to say that my recollection was about 17 acres,
Thank you.
15 acres roughly.
I want to pretend I'm slow so I don't have to ask too many dumb questions more than once. I don't mind asking dumb questions, but I'd like to keep it once. Are we talking about, I heard the word subdivide. I know I heard the word. So is this 17 or 14 acres? ever intended to be subdivided, or will it remain one parcel? That's the intention, because I don't care if they go after rezoning, honestly. I just want to know what we're dealing with. So will the structure start off as a farmhouse on a 17-acre non-urban farm? And then later someone comes and rezones it for a bed and breakfast or an office building or a something? And another question goes right along with that. What other out structures are allowed to be built on a 17 or 14-acre farm with a farmhouse in the front of it? Sheds, garages, shops? What do we expect to find as differences in a 14-acre parcel with a farmhouse on the front that someone's pretending to live in, but they're going to turn into a B&B? What kind of rezonings, what kind of subdivisions do we end up talking about as this property grows its life?
Well, currently, the 15-acre parcel of ground, I stated 17 acres, so my apologies. The 15-acre parcel of ground is a single lot of record with the JP Connell House located upon it and one outbuilding. St. Albans Properties retained the newest of the outbuildings to store their maintenance equipment for the lot. So there's one lot, one dwelling, the JP Connell House, and one outbuilding. That at this time is all that occupies the property. Under the proposal that was explained to me by Terry Gruey, Miss Gruey's brother, is that they would like to place the JP Connell House on a new lot. So now we're at 2 lots. One that would be somewhere in the range of maybe 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 square feet in size, meaning that there'd be approximately 14+ acre parcel that would then be standalone and agricultural in nature. And that's fine, because agriculture or farming is a permitted use in the non-urban resident district. All you need is a minimum of 5 acres to be considered a permitted activity or permitted use. So in the short term, we have the current situation. In the intermediate term, we would have a small lot for the historic asset, and then the largest lot, the remainder of the lot, current lot, for agricultural. Now, saying that, what would we offer as a zoning incentive? Well, first and foremost, we're allowing a lot that's under 3 acres. Secondly, as part of our process, we could go ahead and say it could be a bed and breakfast at some point in the future. We could also go ahead and say it could be a professional office or a general office in the future. We had talked in the past, we were working with the current owner, St. Albans Properties, about the Route 66 Association moving out there and using it for its offices or some similar organization. So we have the latitude based upon the input from the owner under contract to basically add a list of uses to the zoning process, meaning that it's now historic under the master plan. It's on our local register, and as part of the rezoning and subdivision, we can set a range of uses. So as in the future, if the Grueys were to say, we think it'd be a great bed and breakfast, it's here along Route 100 near St. Albans, the development, it's on Route 66, etc. So as we move forward and explore this with the owner under contract, J.G. Gruey, then we could zone so as in the future, the only component that would be necessary is to come back, get approval from the HPC because it's on the register, and then move forward with the license and the occupancy components and things like that. Sorry.
After 2 more years, I'll get this.
Well, it's more for Zoom than me, but like I say,
How much of what you've just described can be front loaded into an action by city council at its first and second reading?
I would think anywhere from 80 to 90%. Let's do it up front while we all are at the same table, instead of, let's say, J.G. Gruey, the company, coming back in 2 years, new faces on the commission, new faces at the Planning and Zoning Commission, new faces at City Council, and potentially a new face at this podium. Let's do it now while we're all here and we have a complete understanding.
Thank you, Director.
You're welcome, sir.
Question?
Yes, I do. First, thanks, Ms. Gruey and your family for bringing this forward. I think it's a great idea. Everybody up here is thrilled, I'm sure, to hear it. My questions are kind of along the same lines as Bob's. Once you have the lot, that is an established fact. And then you can come back later and ask, okay, well, this is on a small lot. It's a separate piece of property. We'd like to go from agriculture to commercial and put a Quick Trips or something there. I'm not even suggesting that that is anything in their mind, but things change and people, and I'm not suggesting they would fall in hard times or anything like that. It's just, it's a possibility that someone new would, some new generation perhaps would say, okay, I want to live in New York City. I've got this asset. I want to, maximize the value. Is there any way to build in some inertia to the zoning so that doesn't happen? Sort of restrict the possibility of that happening. And I also have another question that's along the same vein. 3,000 or 4,000 square foot lot, that's so incredibly tiny that it's a possibility that the yard would completely lose the character of the JP Connell house, and we would have a house there. There's nothing sadder than going to a city and there's a tiny little house there, a log cabin or something, and there's big old office buildings and so forth surrounding it, and it doesn't have the feel. I mean, yeah, they preserved the building, but they didn't preserve the actual, history, historic look and feel of it. So is there a way to win that fight? I mean, give them what they want, but 3,000 or 4,000 square foot, that sounds awful small.
Well, and again,
You're just throwing things out. Yeah.
just working from what I know our allowable zoning would accommodate.
Okay.
In our districts, we have lot components that can be that small, but that's an R6A. That's like a multiple family district. So again, I'm giving you the benefit of just one conversation with Mr. Gruey on this particular subject. Conversation was thorough, complete, but I'm just again saying, I don't know for sure. Is there a way to place inertia or protections relative to the incentive package? Certainly, because here's the key element. If we allow the JP Connell House to become something of a commercial nature, the JP Connell House, the exterior will still look like the JP Connell House. And a small parking lot or something akin to that wouldn't be out of the ordinary either.
Right.
And so what we're doing is we're basically preserving the character not only of the asset, but the area around it.
Mm.
A Quick Trip or some intense commercial use isn't going to fit with the historic component. No matter how much we've saved the asset, it's going to detract from it. It's going to look like you said, it doesn't belong there. Neither really belong together. And so the idea would be is to ensure that if we do give a range of potential uses, they complement the asset first, not necessarily provide the incentive for the action. So the register could start that process because, as you know, to be on the city's register, it has to be approved by ordinance via city council. The rezoning ultimately has to be approved by city council via ordinance. So those protections would be in place. The difference here, in some instances, we're telling the developer, here's what you can do. In an instance of historic preservation, J.G. Gruey and the city of Wildwood would be in a partnership. And the partnership would try to benefit both parties and ensure that both get what they want to justify them spending the money to purchase and restore and preserve, and us to take that leap of faith and do something on that property we wouldn't do anywhere else west of Route 109.
Sure, it seems like it's a bit untenable to say that this will be ag forever. The western end of that is so far from the Connell House. I wouldn't mind seeing some sort of a commercial thing as long as the lights and the noise don't, bother the neighbors, because it would be, it would kind of serve our ultimate goal of preserving the JP Connell House. But you didn't address my sort of secondary question, which is there a way to proscribe any, removal of those genuinely grand trees that shade the place and make it look like, like it's supposed to be there and like it's been there forever?
So what the department would recommend, and again, I haven't talked to the Greaves at length about this, is doing a conservation easement. The county or an easement, the county doesn't care
Mhm.
what the zoning is.
Right.
They don't care. It's the land use,
Right.
And
Right.
so we would do an easement around it to preserve enough of the site to ensure that it's in its appropriate setting.
That's all you had to say. That's a great solution. So, okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And thanks again, Ms. Green.
Yeah, well, if I may, what I think, I think it would be hard to subdivide that with the lot size of the area we're talking about. Because I think pretty much the property lines are going to have to be Manchester, St. Albans, and 100. And then there'll be a property line real close to the house. So it's going to be a decent size. I would think, practically speaking, it'd be decent sized property. But I think in part of our review and approval, we'd like to see, a survey of staking out what those lines are and make sure it's not just a little box around the house. But a question I have is, what would happen if both of these parcels are owned by the same person? Could that person just sell the house? And then we'd have just a house on a subsized lot. It wouldn't be tied into the agricultural that's adjacent to it. And that would concern me a little bit.
Well, certainly protecting the investment of the city in terms of zoning and subdivision incentives is a key component for Ms. Keefe and I. And obviously making the incentive suitable so that it's worth the Greaves' time to basically move forward. I guess what I would say is, first and foremost, the protection of the asset is in their interest as well. They could purchase ground anywhere in Wildwood that's over 5 acres and do a farm. They're here because they like the JP Connell House. They think it has something that they like to try to do as not necessarily a hobby, but certainly something for their family. And so I guess what I'm saying again is, I think we can find a solution that addresses your concerns about somebody selling one lot and the other being retained. Because when we did a similar process to the bungalow that's across the street from the Grover post office, and we offered incentives, and some of those incentives were substantial. We waived the traffic generation assessment fee, which was in the tens of thousands of dollars. What we basically said in the ordinance is, if you sell and the business doesn't move into the bungalow, you have to basically repay the city. Now, how's that done? I'll leave that up to the city attorney.
Yeah.
But again, in this instance, we're dealing with a development entity that basically owns Gravois Bluffs. In fact, probably one of the most successful commercial centers in all of the Midwest. So some of the fears I have, I don't have because I know the family and I know their reputation relative to commercial development and what they've done here in Wildwood. And so I feel comfortable that if we can basically agree upon a proposal that's accepted by the commission, endorsed by council, we'll have a winning proposal for a long time.
Well, I think to be able to save that house, the commission should be very generous in their consideration. I mean, there's a lot it can give to save that house. And, and I do have, I kind of question the value of that property, the remaining property for residential, given where it is and its exposure pretty much on both sides, if you're going to go to 3-acre lots. So it's an awkward piece of property. It may need some future rezoning or something, but I do think we just need to know what's going to happen. And I'd like to see, how that
It's okay.
property would be divided and not put the house in a little box with
Kurt?
farmland around it.
I think it's a great idea to save this house and what's being proposed. My only concern is, does this creating a small lot there set a precedent for developers to come out there and try to change the zoning for small lot subdivisions? Because we can't have any more of what happened here at 109 and 100. That's a disgrace. So what happened there? And we can't have any more. So that's my concern, that, small lots don't start extending west.
Well, just commentary on the reserve at Wildwood, that's town center, and we allowed that in town center. We've allowed that since 1996. It took that long to find a proposal that could garner enough support on city council. Does anybody like the tree removal? Certainly not. But if you want density and you want to meet the concepts of our town center plan, we can't save everything. We're saving basically 98% of the city by allowing that type of development in 2% of it. 2% of 68 acres. So from that perspective, I'll defend what we've done. It's not the best project. It's not something I would basically put on a resume and say, look at the reserve, I did a great job. No, we all collectively, city council, planning and zoning commission, and the department recognize that in town center, we allow density. And by the way, we need density. We have businesses that aren't being successful because there's not enough people. And we have a declining population, which is never a good sign for our community. And so if you don't like it, I appreciate it. I will always try to do better. I forgot your question though.
Sorry for my commentary too, but I have to drive by that every day and
It'll get better, I promise you.
there's all those trees out there that are this big and they're gonna come back and find trees this big.
It'll get better.
That it doesn't set a precedent for smaller lots being moved west.
No, because first and foremost, we have the 5th land use category, the historic land use category of the master plan, which is only applied when a historic asset is involved. And in the charter, the city council is prohibited from approving a zoning which would allow smaller lots that's inconsistent with the master plan's land use categories. So the only way that someone could replicate this is if there's a historic asset of the same quality and importance as the JP Connell House. Somebody come in with a bungalow and say, yeah, I want to do the same thing. Well, it's not the JP Connell House. That was built by the same builder as the Old Pond School.
Mhm.
It's just a very important piece of our history.
Yeah, no, I agree with what's being proposed. And again, my only problem was is it a precedent?
Yeah, and I think we can address that because when we created the historic land use category for the master plan, I can assure you that the city attorney and others with interest, the incorporation group, the city council, everybody was involved and said, we don't want this to become something we didn't plan. And to date, we've had several applications. Quite frankly, none of them have come to fruition because it's a difficult process. Because more so than not, the asset was secondary to the incentive. Here, from talking to Mr. Gruey, the asset is more important. They're just wanting the property to basically put some more cattle on. So
That lot being that size, like you said, about putting in a parking lot. Is it big enough to put a parking lot on 4,000 square feet with the house?
well, again, depending on how it all moves forward, It, it may be in an easement dedicated to the owners or
true.
occupants of the house. Again, the idea here, at least from what was described to me, and if I'm stating this wrong, Ms. Gruey can certainly correct me. They want to pay the least amount of taxes on the improvement and obtain the least amount of tax burden on the remaining property.
You good? Me too. But I go back to the tree thing that Rob was concerned about. But again, that Wildwood still has all the restrictions on removal of trees too, correct?
Yes, there was a decision made back before COVID, I guess it was, or right after COVID, I can't remember the exact date, that the city council concurred that we would retain the old regulations of the Tree Preservation and Restoration Code, given that the zoning had been approved for this project long before we adopted the new regulations. Because the new regulations, as Dr. Rambo will attest, wouldn't have allowed them to remove the grand groves of trees. We saved the grand trees, then the ones that have been identified by their arborists and reviewed by ours in concurrence. But the grand groves of trees, those that weren't necessarily 24 inches or greater in diameter at breast height, those groves were that's what made the property. And a lot of them were the evergreens, conifers, cedars, things like that. So, like I say, we're going to have 115 new families that are going to bring vibrancy to our town center. So, we're here.
Joe, would it be helpful to you at any point here that we appoint a committee to work with you on this? Because
Certainly. I think the Greys would appreciate.
I'm thinking that 2 or 3 people here can come up with a lot of answers already, and we can avoid this, because I could see this go on every meeting for quite a while, because it's a new concept, and I'm thinking maybe that a committee working with you to report to us would be very beneficial.
Certainly, and the other request I would have respectfully tonight is maybe just a motion to endorse moving forward with acknowledging what we know at this stage.
That would be helpful. Okay. Would someone make that motion? Someone ready to do that? I will. Thank you. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Everyone understand the motion that we continue with this development, and Joe, you just keep us informed as to how we can be helpful to you. If the committee is helpful, we'll proceed. If not, we'll do whatever you think is appropriate. But I could see this getting out of hand if we keep this up, and there's too much going on here.
And again, I think Ms. Keefe and I are open to having a small group of.
Right,
commission
and we don't work enough in committees. And
it
we're
helps
too
the
bound
breweries
here.
because they have the decision makers in the room when they propose or say, we can't do this because, instead of Robin and I coming back and saying they can't do this because, you'll hear from them, obviously the petitioner, the applicant, which I think is beneficial. It's the partnership component that I spoke to before.
The motion goes before you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. And thanks for rearranging the agendas. It's much appreciated, I'm sure.
And thank you again for being here.
Thank you for standing up and proposing this.
Now we'll go back to the log cabin.
Essen Log Cabin. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the commission, as you know, the Essen Log Cabin has been something we've been discussing as a group, not necessarily all of you, but the commission for approximately 10 years since the donation occurred. Recently at a city council meeting, the barest or thinnest or the closest of margins, the contract with Charette Creek Excavating was approved. I believe the vote was 9-7. That occurred on reconsideration because the original vote was 8-7 and it failed for lack of a majority. Fortunately, one of the members on Zoom was able to return. The reconsideration vote was approved and success was found. the question probably on your mind is, when is the reassembly going to start? And Mr. McDonald, the owner of Charette Creek Excavating, is asking that as well. And I am trying to get an answer from our general contractor on phase one of Village Green, because right now his equipment and the lack of flat work is blocking access to the cabin site. So wish I could tell you that it's going to start tomorrow. My guess is that the contract with Charette Creek Excavating will be completed and the notice to proceed will be done probably the second week of October. In the contract, which was provided to you as part of the memorandum, it noted that the agreed upon completion date was November 30th of this year. I think that's a little ambitious now, given that Village Green Phase One is, for the most part, not ready to provide the necessary access for the construction and reassembly of the cabin. But I still think we're within a couple of weeks of getting started. And if there are any questions regarding the memorandum, Keith and I are available. And as you know, as a footnote, Ms. Keefe was able, in a very nice way, twist Mr. McDonald's arm to participate at Celebrate Wildwood. We had him there in the tent with some of his construction equipment, tools from.
Yes, he brought some early equipment and tools from the frontier period for display. I did not have to twist his arm at all, by the way. He volunteered. He was going to bring, as much stuff as he could cart over. Later in the day, if we hadn't been rained out, his father would have joined. His whole family was there, and he can't wait to recruit basket weavers and all kinds of programming activities for the future when we do have a log cabin. So I think we have a great partner in Mr. McDonald. So I look forward to working with them very much on this project.
Is he a resident of Wildwood?
I believe he lives in Herman, Missouri, and that's where he's done most of his log cabin reconstructions.
So just as a footnote, in our charter, there's a provision that no project, single project, so to speak, can exceed now under the inflationary allowances $4.2 million. So the fact that the cabin is in Village Green, we're trying to figure out if that impacts that charter component. Because we have Village Green Phase One that's going to end up somewhere around 2.2 or 2.3 million. We have the playground that's going to follow the all-inclusive playground, somewhere around 2.2 or so. And we have the cabin at just under $300,000. So we're investigating that to make sure that we don't violate the charter. Mr. Mayberry.
I'm sorry.
Mike,
Forgot my train of thought.
Sorry.
No, this Mike can apologize. Do we need to artificially stall the completion do we need to stall the installation until the completion of phase one as a project? As a remedy to having the log cabin as part of phase one of the project?
Absolutely not. I don't believe that to be the case. I think that the cabin itself can be, the components of the cabin, the footing, foundation, and the slab on grade, those things can get started. Even with, let's say, less than ideal conditions. We'll lose that additional $5,000 deduct that was part of the bid Charette Creek Excavating provided. But I think that's a small price to pay. We're still at $280,000, even without the additional deduct, which is $40,000 less than the best bid through round one. So I think we can move forward. And if you're worried about the cabin, I think the solution the city administrator, Tom Lee, and I've come up with is the all-inclusive playground is the premier design. That was the choice of city council. We can certainly scale that back if necessary. And scaling back on that means instead of it being almost 40,000 square feet in size, somewhere less than that.
A mechanical means of stalling the ribbon cutting and the official turning on of the lights of the log cabin. Stall that until after the official completion and ribbon cutting of phase one of Village Green. It's legal. It's a machination, but it's a mechanical requirement, and it doesn't keep the log cabin from being done. Just it keeps it from being contractually completed. I'm sure you've thought of that in 5 more things.
Well, I feel confident with Charette Creek Excavating that if they say it'll be done on X day, it will. I have limited confidence contractor for phase one. He has made promises in terms of completion dates, none of which have been met to date. In fact, the last 4 days, due to the rain and wet ground conditions, there's been no one there working on this one in Village Green. And in the opinion of the department, there are a number of things that can be done, regardless of wet ground conditions or rain. A number of light standards that need to be installed. We have a drinking fountain that needs to be installed. We have other landscaping that needs to be placed. At a loss. Thank you.
If I may, we talked about that very eventuality when we chose a contractor, and it's that chicken's coming home to roost and to a certain extent. But the cabin is really, has it been presented to the Bombshell folks as priority one? Get your flat work done in that area and move your equipment so that we can start on the cabin. Because he bid on the cabin, so maybe he doesn't feel the pressure to clear the way for some other contractor to be working there.
I can assure you, our city administrator, Tom Lee, sent an email that was very clear in the urgency of the completion. Very, very clear.
So,
which I appreciated from our city administrator.
yeah, that's good. This cabin is so important. But we had choices on where we would locate the cabin. It didn't have to, it just, that was the best place for it. And, to ding us for putting it in the best place for the community when we had choices, it may be legal, but it doesn't seem fair. And the same thing with the $1 million playground. We wanted it. That's a good place for it. But it wasn't part of the original plan for for the Village Green at all.
Exactly. And so from the commission's perspective, don't feel like you've done something like, oh, we've crossed that line. No, you haven't. Because the all-inclusive playground wasn't an idea until December of 2023. And it was to be at Glencoe City Park. Then we moved it to Community Park. And then ultimately the commission decided it needs to be here at the center of City and Town Center. So to that end, we were here first. Our recommendation, it was the playground that followed. And as I say, we've been doing the math in a general way, but we're getting close to understanding what we have to spend. Now that we have a bidded price for the cabin, almost completed project for phase one. We just need to adjust the price for the all-inclusive playground, which is entirely doable. And it'll still be a wonderful facility. I can guarantee you that.
I would hate to cut back on that. This seems arbitrary. There's a really good case to be made that we are not in violation because we had, we made those choices at the 11th hour after the plan was in place for phase one. And
I am just reciting what the city.
Oh yeah, I know, but I would really fight that. I'm sorry.
The charter provision is very clear. It's one of those provisions that I argued against. This is a democracy. It's an elected body. They will make the best decisions. Going back to the voters is almost always an assurance that you're going to do it only once or twice. And you're always going to pare down what you submitted first. That's the process. So it is what it is, but we're gonna get through it, I promise you, because we have three great projects, Village Green Phase 1, Village Green Phase 2, the playground, and our cabin. Three great projects that most communities would love to have and be concerned about.
The cabin's even, I'm beating this to death. I'm sorry. I know I am, but it's just, it's very important, that we not skinny back on the little playground, or the not so little playground, but the cabin is right there on the corner. Just cut that out of the Village Green scenario and we're done, right? I mean, it's right on the boundary.
And there is such a thing called as a boundary adjustment plat.
Yeah, exactly right.
Talked about that. Plat that line a little to the west, and all of a sudden the cabin's on City Hall site.
And so is the playground. I mean, playground is, so anyway, you're on top of it. I'm just whining because I really,
Talking about it tonight, but we're getting.
okay. Let me know if I can help. Thank you.
How about the cabin?
No, sir, I'll sit down and be quiet. Thank you.
Robin, you waited long.
Oh, it's nice. I'm getting a
Historic
break.
preservation plan.
Mr. Chair, members of this commission, as you know, our big undertaking this year has been our historic preservation plan, the first citywide historic preservation plan for the city of Wildwood. We've had a number of updates since we last met on this topic. Right after we met, we held another focus group with a bunch of individuals on Monday, August 25th. The primary topic for discussion was Indigenous history. So we did get to touch on that and explore some different topic areas than we had previously at some of our other focus groups. Following that, on September 8th, MIG, or Marcia Boyle of MIG, gave presentation to the Wildwood City Council. So we've now presented the historic preservation plan effort, its current status, and ongoing engagement to both the master plan committee as well as city council. So everybody should be in the know. Following that, we did receive comments from the State Historic Preservation Office back on our historic preservation plan outline, our current existing conditions report, as well as our community engagement summary. So SHPO did provide us some very thoughtful comments. I've included that in your packets this evening, and we'll be addressing that as part of the next iteration of the plan. And we believe that's very doable. We've discussed that with our consultant as well. And finally, for the big hurrah last Saturday, Marcia Boyle did come home to Wildwood to be a part of that with us. And it was really nice having her there. She brought a lot of energy to the tent. I think the activities were very well received. We did a lot of engagement throughout the day and got some more feedback on our historic preservation plan effort. And I'd say one thing that I continue hearing over and over again is that people would like to see more heritage themed events. So that seems to be a common thread across all of these areas. It's maybe not number one, but it's been in those top 3 or 4 for every activity we've done. And that brings us up to our present day. So the next step for this historic preservation plan is a near final draft of the plan. 70% completion is due this December to the State Historic Preservation Office. And that means that this draft will be available for your review in October, because we'll need to take a look before it goes to the state. So that's the goal, is that at your next meeting, you'll have a much more robust historic preservation draft to look at. Secondly, at Celebrate Wildwood, I did go around and I talked to the different local vendors and different clubs. And I wanted to note that the Lions Club has expressed interest in having this commission present to it, along with the Wildwood Historical Society, at one of their future meetings, which is usually held on Wednesday evenings. So if anyone is interested in making that presentation, then I can go ahead and try to set something up with them so that we can potentially find some ways to work together for future historic preservation efforts. Because that would be the goal, is presenting what we do so that potentially their membership can get excited and the Lions Club can show up for us at a future date. So if this commission is interested, I would certainly love to know that at this time.
Certainly.
It's a great president of that organization, not here in St. Louis, but real town. And it was fabulous what they will come up with and help with. And not just the men, the mothers are there too, wives are there too, and the kids are there. So I think it's a wonderful idea.
Might be an opportunity also to do a little membership plug for both organizations. I would assume it's our local Lions Club since they were at Celebrate Wildwood.
I don't even know the one you read. I didn't know there was one. I thought, no, read.
I would propose that was on. I propose we would have not only the Lions Club, but the Wildwood Historical Society as far as presentation. I think that's a great start.
Right, wonderful. Well, if this is the general consensus, then we can certainly move forward and reach out to the Lions Club and set something up. And then I'll communicate with this group via email.
It would be a good idea to also ask them what specifically maybe they're looking for as far as what topics or what they want to know about. So maybe in advance, kind of limit the narrative and see what they want.
Sure. Sounds good.
I might suggest that they think about holding the meeting at the Historical Society.
That's not a bad idea. We could certainly offer that to them. Currently, they meet at Salt and Smoke at the Clarkson and Clayton Center in Ellisville on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of the month.
Oh, there's your answer.
I will first talk to the Wildwood Historical Society before offering their facilities, but we
Yeah,
can see
just a thought.
we can see what can be offered. Sure.
While you're up, you want to go on with Route 66?
Well, actually, I'm not quite finished with
Oh, I'm
Celebrate
sorry.
Wildwood. So another vendor that I spoke with was the Department of Missouri Conservation. And one of the ladies at the tent was specifically based at Rockwood's Reservation. And so I told her all about our historic preservation plan effort and what we were doing. And not so long after I received this flyer from her in my email box, Ghosts of Rockwood's Past. This event will be held on October 18th from 10 a.m. in the morning to 11:30 a.m. And it will generally focus on the history of Rockwood's Reservation. As an addendum to this flyer, she invited this group, the Historic Preservation Commission, out to speak to this group as well as part of this tour. So if we have any ambassadors from this commission, I'm not sure if I can make it. I'm going to be working an event the night before. But if we have any ambassadors who would like to show up at this Ghost of Rockwood's Past event and say a few words about what this commission does and how people can get involved, we'd certainly love to be included as part of this. So you can reach out to the department via email if you have an interest. And that concludes my presentation on the historic preservation plan effort.
May I suggest you just put out an RSVP and you'll get either yeses or nos. I don't know I'm a yes or a no yet. I have to look at stuff.
Regarding the Ghosts of Rockwood's Past?
Yeah, being an ambassador at whatever that is.
I'll send out an email to this group, both regarding the Lions Club opportunity. Well, I'll probably get to this one just a little sooner since there's already a date, but I'll be sending out a follow-up. Thank you.
Hey, Robin,
Yes.
I get so sick of typing. I want to try to articulate.
Could you use your microphone?
It's on.
It's not picking you.
Okay, that better? Yeah, so rather than type this all out, I was kind of excited to go here because I've been going to Rockwood's Reservation since I was a little kid. I mean, my family did lots of free stuff because we didn't have any money. And one of the things was the zoo there. And another thing was they had a beautiful, like museum in a gorgeous stone dwelling, and the road was different and this and that was different and whatnot. So I have a lot of historical perspective that I can throw in some very brief remarks along with being your ambassador, as you put it. As long as you give me a script of things I need to cover, I'd be happy to do that because I'm pretty sure I'm going to go. I have to check my own calendar.
That sounds great. We'd love
Super.
to have you.
Thank you. Now, can we go on Phillips 66?
Yes. Now I can talk about Route 66.
I said Phillips.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of this commission. I admittedly, I think Celebrate Wildwood took most of my focus this past month. But we do have plans for our Route 66 efforts going into this next month. And one of those plans is we're going to be finalizing our event dates for next year. We've talked about doing a number of Route 66 events, including a drive-in movie with the cities of Eureka and Pacific, though I think we've already settled on the next year's back-to-school party for that one. A Bunyan Derby run, a concert, potentially a Joe Sonderman presentation, a trivia game, a Route 66 cruise event, and a scavenger hunt. So given that we are in this partnership with Leader Publications to produce a Route 66 magazine for the Centennial, we want to make sure that we nail down these dates in this next month so they can get in the magazine as part of our overall promotions for City of Wildwood. So speaking of our Route 66 themed magazine, I will say that we had a little bit of a setback this past month. I had sat down with the city's communications and economic development manager to determine a messaging strategy to businesses. And we had worked something out, and then she left the city, unfortunately. Two good opportunities. We appreciated having her while she was here. But now we're having to retool a little bit based on staff availability and what we can do. But Leader Publications has been happy so far. I was able to give them a lead to Fast Lane classic cars, and it looks like they might advertise in the magazine. And we'll make sure that we send a list of Wildwood businesses and organizations for them to contact as well. At this last meeting, this commission did endorse sponsoring an additional 1/3 page highlighting the city or this commission's partnership with the Wildwood Historical Society. So I went ahead and let them know that we're going to be doing a page and a third in terms of our advertising commitment. Ms. Von Gruben has volunteered to assemble some of the Route 66 history leads that will then send to Leader Publications so that their journalists can weave those together into some interesting content for the magazine. And that concludes my update so far regarding the magazine. Are there any questions about that specifically for the department?
How are you going to disseminate those magazines?
So Leader Publications is reaching out. They're looking to distribute the magazine all across Missouri and even up 55 to Chicago. So they'll be reaching out to visitor centers, to hotels, to gas station convenience stores along the route and making that happen. If you have any ideas, certainly share them with the department and we'll pass that along as well.
I used to hang out over there at the, where when these years have passed now, but I still want to go back and look at the people that walk in there because they're always looking for a place and they want to know. And so we told them you can eat at this place and you can eat at this place. And guess what's coming? It's coming soon.
What's coming?
Well, didn't we spend a lot of time talking about the place where we're going to stop cars and they're going to look at the history of?
Oh, you mean the park?
That's a park, yes.
Yes, coming soon.
But it's amazing the people that still run this road as much as they can.
Absolutely. I do hear stories all the time of people coming through.
There's also tours that run basically from Chicago all the way out to Los Angeles. I don't know how to get a hold of that list, but there are car tours. And I would think there'd be a lot of them in 2026. So, but they would be able to pick up this at maybe at rest areas and things like that. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the next component, which is the Route 66 historic marker. I will admit there's been a little bit of a delay this year in moving forward with that project. And that was largely because we were looking to determine whether or not we needed to basically, it was a question of copyright, who owned the design to our current markers, and could we potentially go to another entity for future markers? And what we determined was that our historic community markers, because there's a bit of a question mark as to who owns the copyright for those designs, that design is essentially potentially owned by Ingraphics Architectural Signage, who we've used in the past. However, what we're proposing so that we can open the door to potentially exploring other signed architectural companies is maybe coming up with a slight variation to our signage for future markers, causing them to be distinctive from our historic community markers. And we think that's a good delineation because all of our current markers are historic community markers. So we could potentially have a different design, not too different, but different for all future markers, which have, more of a landmark feel. Like we've got our United States Colored Troops, we have our Route 66 historic marker, and we're talking about, if Mr. Mabry had his way, 50 others. But the nice thing about moving towards a slightly different design is that then we could shop around and we would own the copyright, particularly if we designed it and we documented that we designed it. And then that wouldn't put us in that same spot going forward as we're as we're pursuing additional markers. So that's what I would like to present to you as the primary update this evening regarding our Route 66 historic marker. We'd very much like to move forward with it, but we would like to potentially explore using a different company than we have in the past. Largely, there's just such a variation in cost estimates and materials and just ease of working with the people. So if that's something that this commission would like to explore, I don't have any designs to present to you this evening, but we'd certainly like your endorsement to move forward with the potential of exploring a different design for future markers and then having our Route 66 marker be the first marker with such a design. I would love one.
I really like the idea of having its own distinct character and look. So I would make a motion to approve your further exploration on that idea.
I'll second that.
Mr. Chair, any discussion?
Any discussion? Any further
If I-
discussion?
Yeah, so you would have, right now, I guess, the design of the markers we have were designed by the manufacturer who's making the signs. Is that it?
We actually don't know who ultimately designed our current markers.
Okay, but
The
who
the
owns-
main thing is we looked in our files, we looked in every location we could think of, and we couldn't come down to a definitive one way or another.
Oh, but Wildwood doesn't. At least they know, Wildwood does not own the.
We could potentially own it, we just don't know because
Yeah,
we don't
okay.
have documents.
So, but you would you would have a graphic designer would design it and give that copyright, with the design, we would buy the copyright, and then you could give that to any sign company to manufacture signs. Is that correct?
So I believe, and Director Vunich can correct me if I'm wrong, but in any of the city's contracts where we're directly contracting with a graphic designer, I believe it's included in the contract that we own the copyright of whatever is
Right.
produced through that relationship.
And then it could be bid from 5, 10 different sign companies that would.
That's right, but we would own that design,
We would
so
own the
even
design.
if one company did this next Route
Yeah.
66 marker, then in the future, we could
That's-
potentially change
That's
companies
that's
again.
what you want.
And
yeah.
we're, it gives us more options. And that's the idea behind it.
That begets a question.
I'm going to ask you to repeat your motion, I think. It was a long time ago.
Well, I think the motion you're looking for, Robin was looking for, is to give our approval for their further exploration and looking at another company to possibly work the design and be the one that is retained.
Yes.
That motion was seconded, so it goes before you. Any additional comments?
I don't think I understand that was the motion that was made that you were looking for. A big distinction to me between working with some entity that's going to help the city develop a new bespoke marker template. And then I hear that company that we work with will retain the copyright, or that the city will retain the copyright to be allowed to competitively bid to anybody in the world from that point on. So when I hear that we'll work with we'll team with someone, and then the contract will stipulate that they retain copyright and we have to work with them forever, or that we don't and we have it ourselves, that's important to me.
So to clarify what I stated earlier, one, I think we're going to start with designing new marker internally, with our existing staff.
That's the best.
But two, generally, I believe, and I will double check and correct myself to this commission if I'm wrong, but I believe our city contracts, when we hire a consultant to do this work for us, it's built right into the contract that we own the copyright. They're doing this work for the city of Wildwood, so it's our design, even though they're performing the work, but we're paying them for that design. So, so we would own the design regardless of whether we design it internally with our staff or whether we hire a graphic designer, through the city's usual process.
That's
I
good to
believe
have.
that is the motion, correct? Did you want to add anything to that motion?
No, that's good.
Okay. Goes before you, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Once again, carried. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And that concludes my Route 66 update.
And then discussion, just a point. We apparently have ordered 8 or 10 of these placards already, markers.
No, we're in the process of, we have a city approved marker for our United States Colored Troops. And we're in the process of designing a Route 66 historic marker, but we only have 2 presently in the works.
What's driving the change from what we've already got without, it seems to be the driving motive to make a change, at least in part, a big part, is that we don't know whether we own the copyright to what we already have or don't. So to be safe, we're going to invent something new that we can grab as the owner of. A very simple tactic would be to use the same template if it's inoffensive and there's no other reason than to change it than the fact that we want to eliminate a variable. Just put it out for competitive bid and be sure to include the printer that printed the first batch, inform them that we're putting out a competitive bid, and then that forces them to disclose whether they think they have a claim to the copyright or not at that point, or else they're disallowed from coming back later and claiming that as a trick that they knew that they claimed that they owned the copyright, but then they let us bid it out so that we could violate their copyright. And that's just a simple tactic to weed it out. If we really want to change the template, great. And it shouldn't be any reason why we care about whether the copyright is owned by someone else or isn't owned by someone else, or we don't have the paperwork. I'm just really trying to deconfuse myself on what the real drive is and what's behind each of the different drives.
Well, we've been primarily having this conversation with our city attorney regarding what those considerations are. That's certainly one approach we could take. However, I will say that there's a certain time constraint with the Route 66 historic marker, and that we probably want to get that fabricated as soon as possible in time for the 100th anniversary. And so I would be concerned that if we do it the way that you're describing, that could potentially delay the project several more months as we go through that process, and then wait for a challenge, and then we might be back at square one talking about the same thing.
You've just added another driving motive, and that's the most important one I've heard yet. So I'd say full steam ahead with the plan you have now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right, any other questions regarding Route 66 revitalization?
I don't believe so.
Oh,
Proceed.
if I may, I think, now thinking about it, that the fact that it would be different from our historical, it would look different than our historical communities markers. And I think that's a positive. I would suggest, even if we didn't have to change it, that it would be good to change the design of it.
Thank you. All right, at your next meeting, we'll bring back a few designs for your consideration.
Good,
Thank you.
thank you. Work program?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, most items in our work program, I believe we are touching on tonight, but I will touch on just a couple. First, I would like to note that the Missouri Department of Natural Resources has informed us that they have indeed received the funding from the federal government, which means they can go forward with producing a grant agreement for all parties to sign and send us to the national conference for the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions next year in Minneapolis. So that is in the works. It would also pay for training for us to attend the next summer short course series as well. And that would cover everyone's fee for that. Also, I would just like to note that next Thursday, Commissioner Broyles, Advisor Scott as a stand-in for Chair Stevens, our youth commissioners, and our friends at SWT Design and I are all going to the Missouri Preservation Conference in St. Louis, and we're producing or we're presenting on our Route 66 student task force and youth member initiatives here at the city. So we're very excited to be doing that. And I may even take this session proposal that I put together and submit it to the national conference in Minneapolis as well, since we'll be in attendance. So we'll see how that goes. So that's my update there. And the only other update I would say is just to remind you that we have a save the date on hold for the afternoon of Sunday, November 2nd for the memorial brick dedications for Ms. Von Gruben and Ms. Hardcamp.
What time is that?
It hasn't. It's a save the date at this time. It would probably be let's just say around 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And that's a Sunday?
It's a Sunday afternoon. November 2nd. So just block off the afternoon, please. And that concludes my presentation on the work program. If you have any questions of the department for any of the items on our work program, we'd love to hear them at this time and try to answer them.
There being none, we'll move on to new business.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of this commission, I attempted to make a video for this meeting. Unfortunately, it apparently takes 5 hours for it to render. I'm going to attempt to show you the preview version from the editor software now. So just give me a moment and we'll see how it goes. "12 hours now." Give it a second. Yes, while we wait for it to buffer, we sold 11 history books at the event and 8 Route 66 t-shirts. This looks like getting somewhere. Jill Von Gruben was a local celebrity at the history tent. It turns out that her endeavors in New Orleans were highly interesting to people. And so many people came out to see her and the history books because of that news going out.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'm going to ask Ms. Keefe to kind of curtail the video so that we can move on to the rest of the items on the agenda. We'll have a final version for you at a future meeting.
The fun effort that I threw together right before the meeting, and unfortunately, that's not enough time.
Sounds good.
All right, so going on, I'm just giving a recap of the day. Obviously, we had some great news in the morning. Chair Bockert worked tirelessly for this commission for weeks leading up to this parade effort. Recruited a horse-drawn carriage from his neighbors and invited all of you to the party. Commissioner Bertolo donated a vintage vehicle to the event as well. And then we had a golf cart pooper scooper vehicle tailing the whole show. All in all, it was a fun display that everyone thoroughly enjoyed, and it actually won you all first place
Oh,
in the Celebrate Wildwood Parade this year. So once I get this signed from the mayor, apologies, we can thereafter display it in our display area here at City Hall. Congratulations. Job well done.
It's 20 hours back.
yeah.
As noted earlier, we also did quite a bit of engagement around our historic preservation plan effort. Turns out that the top response when we gave people 10 choices for historic preservation planning priorities, the top response was protect and highlight the community's legacy trees, flora, and fauna. That was our top. After that came revitalizing the historic Route 66 corridor, expanding the number of family-friendly events that include a historic theme, and installing more historic plaques and interpretive signage in Wildwood. We also produced a similar activity to what we had at the Back to School event. And again, attend historically themed festivals was #1, followed by the ghost tour of Zombie Road. And then Essen Log Cabin, or visit a reconstructed log cabin, did come in 3rd place, along with eating at a historic restaurant. So that's what gets people excited about history. For our map of historic landmarks activity, Babbler Park continues to get the most votes. So Babbler really does have a reputation for being a historical park in our city. Rockwood's Reservation, the log cabins, the Korean Camp Store, Stovall's Grove, and Big Chief Roadhouse all got celebration stickers. And a place that's at risk of being lost is the Pond Inn. The historic communities mapping activity, it continues to engage people and bring people in. We actually had that out as kind of the leading activity into the historic preservation plan engagement area. And so people would come, they would see the historic community sticker activity, they would get engaged in that, and then I would draw them in to the other activities. But it was a very popular crowd attractor. We gave out many, many points of interest maps. And then, as we discussed earlier, we had Eli McDonald and his family with a full display of those early Frontier Life items. And he was doing a wonderful job engaging with the kids. There were so many who would just run right up to his display and they're like, "What's this? This is so cool." And he had like an oil lamp from the Katy Trail back when it was, actually a railroad. So he had a lot of really interesting items. He said all of them did fine after the rain event. They got a good clean. We took them home. But he's excited to help us equip our cabin and future events. After that, we had quite the downpour. We had a torrential rain event that lasted, I don't know, it was a good 45 minutes, or how long was it? It was a decent length of time. We had like rivers going down the back of our tent. We had to, cut the electricity. It was pretty crazy. So thank you to everybody who was involved in that effort. Mr. Mabry was knocking water off the top of the tent there, and I had some great pictures of it. We had to throw away most of our paper items, but thankfully we can just print more of those. Some of our awards did take a little bit of a hit. I'm sorry, but we dried them out the best we could. I think most of them will survive another day. Maybe one of them I might reach out to an organization, see if we can't replace it. But other than that, everyone did good. We rescued items best we could. The history books made it out alive. All the stickers made it out alive, which was great. So it was great. So thank you, everyone, for your help. Thank you for having a good attitude. Thanks for dancing in the rain with me and just making memories at Celebrate Wildwood. Yes, we did. We sold a history book and 2 t-shirts while we were under the tent getting poured on. And everyone came back to City Hall afterwards to help me dry out those items. So thank you for that. Apologies to those who showed up later to an empty tent. Hopefully you had a good time at the event. Next year, we're planning to bring a tarp and some waterproof plastic bins. That way, if we have a sudden rain event, we can just toss everything in there and we're not quite as caught off guard. And hopefully we can then proceed with the show after the rain passes. But we did have a few suggestions that came up since the event. One concerning the parade, we would just suggest that for next year when HPC goes all out, that floats at the front of the parade actually stage at the venue grounds until the rest of the parade has passed. And that way we don't have people going against the flow of the parade back to the Chinooks parking lot. We are recommending a new method potentially of taking payments. Our Square Reader apparently doesn't connect to some of the newer iPads, so we're looking into that. And then we've noticed that hardcover books do sell more readily at Celebrate Wildwood. People like the nicer version, and so we'll make sure that we have more of those at future events as well. However, at this time, the department's going to stop talking and turn it over to you to share some of your favorite memories of the day and any feedback that you have for us on how we can make it even better next year. Thank you.
Any comments?
I thought it was great that you hand the candy out and not throw it. And because there was a lady in front of me that was throwing it, and I'm in that truck trying to slow down, and it's old, and it made me a nervous wreck with the kids running in the street. And, we're going slow, but still you were constantly making sure the kids were okay, especially as it gets more narrow as you go up. That was a great thing, handing the candy to the kids, I thought.
Any other comments?
I did, right here. I hope we can get the horses back.
They all went home fine.
Okay.
They beat the rain.
I think they were a big hit.
Huh?
I think they were a big hit.
Oh, thank you. They were.
Yeah.
We enjoyed it too. Well, the dog is a part of the family, so that's, he comes along for the ride.
So Robin, one more for Robin. Thank you for all the work you did setting that up, that booth up, because it took a lot to get all those different elements in there. So we appreciate that.
Well, I had help from a woman, Dawn Willenbrink with the city. She was very helpful to setting up the tent, and so was Marcia Boyle with MIG. So together we made it happen. Thank you. And of course, thank you to all of you for everything that you put into that event, because it wouldn't have been as successful if we hadn't had the enthusiasm and dedication and just everybody here being a part of it. That's what makes those events really special. So thank you.
Amen.
And Joe always likes to do a call out for the staff. Would you like to? Well, anyway, I will. Just note that it always takes a village to make those types of events come together. And so there's a whole lot of people who are involved in Celebrate Wildwood beyond us and the history tent. But to make that whole event come together, it's a year-long planning effort. With this being the 30th anniversary, it was probably even longer than that. So just a call out to all of those behind the scenes folks who are a part of making this event so special. And that concludes my presentation regarding the debrief.
Do we have any idea how many people actually attend?
I heard good things. I heard that maybe we had one of the more well-attended events.
I mean, the swarm of kids and families at the end of the parade, for example. I mean, that seems like a couple thousand people at least to me, but I have no way of.
Easily.
Yeah, I would love to know.
And in years past, Officer DeGelder with the St. Louis County Police Department would provide estimates. Generally, over the course of the day, we have about 5,000 to 6,000 people. Officer DeGelder retired. This year, I don't have an estimate yet, but for the most part, over the course of the day, and it's about a 10-hour day, we'll get that many people, and that's what draws the vendors and the different food court providers and et cetera. It's a well-attended event generally.
It was nice also that the rain did not dampen the rest of the evening, so to speak. It looked like a lot of the crowds came back. I think we hung around till about 6 or so, or 6:30. The band hadn't started yet, but it had been a long day, so we went home and got some dry clothes. But it looked like a lot of people came back. I don't know how it turned out for the fireworks, but there were some good numbers from what I saw after the rain.
I heard good reports on the fireworks too.
Great. All right.
Okay. CLG annual reporting.
So my last couple updates of the agenda, I can almost lump into one, have to do with our responsibilities as a CLG. So as all of you are hopefully aware of by now, but we are a certified local government, and that means we work on our historic preservation initiatives in partnership with the state and federal governments in terms of funding and technical assistance and designation programs and tax credits and other incentives as well. So we all work together in partnership. And as being a certified local government, we do have some requirements for that certification. And that's enacting our own historic preservation ordinance, appointing a commission such as yourselves, conducting an ongoing survey of our historic properties, doing the public outreach that this commission does so well, and satisfactorily performing the responsibilities assigned to it. We are also required every year to submit an annual report summarizing all of these activities so that we can continue to prove that we're doing what we need to do as a CLG. And so I've reached out to all of you at this point, and I've summarized how many trainings you've done for the year, and asked for resumes in some cases if I didn't have one on file. So I will be looking at my notes when I go back to the office. I may be reaching out to a couple of you still to make sure that we have all of those requirements in place. But just note that the city does need to submit this annual report by the end of November. And so your help in helping me tie up some of those loose ends is always appreciated. But really, you should all give yourselves a pat on the back this year, because I really didn't have too many people who I could say, hey, you didn't complete your training. I think most of you had. And in fact, some of you were overachievers with 6 or 7 or 8 trainings in some cases. So congratulations, you are more than fulfilling your responsibilities as part of this CLG. So thank you for that. Also, I'd just like to go ahead and lump that final one. It's under other matters for consideration. But you might have remembered that last month I introduced our new CLG coordinator to you. Well, unfortunately, that was short-lived, and she has since moved on to other opportunities. So we are once again working with Andrew Dial, who is the Community Services Section Chief for the State Historic Preservation Office. He came to visit us in October of 2023 for the evaluation visit. He's a wonderful guy. We have a good relationship with him. So for now, we'll just continue working with him towards our preservation efforts. And I'll let you know when they hire a new CLG coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, tell us what's happening with the McConnell House. You lost me for a few minutes here because I was reading that. I didn't know all of the things that had gone on to this place in terms of the changes in who's buying it and what they're going to do with it.
The current owner is the owner that has been in place for a number of years. St. Albans Properties purchased 3 of the 4 corners at Highway T and Route 100 many, many years ago with the hope of using them as an entryway into the overall development in Franklin County. The Wildwood Property Sanctuary, which is Carl Essen and Mr. Roberts, they had what we believed for a while a contract for the purchase. And then, as I had mentioned, most recently within the last few weeks, J.G. Gruey, commercial developer and a longtime family that has lived in Wildwood, came and said now they have the contract for purchase. And so we're moving forward here pretty quickly. Hopefully we'll have something more for you in October.
Are they thinking of moving it, or they're going to work around it?
They are going to preserve it, restore it, and they'd actually like to expand the kitchen so it's a more functional house for 2025 standards.
They are.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very. And as I said, they own Gravois Bluff, probably one of the largest commercial centers in the Midwest. They have the wherewithal to do a very good job.
And they're a cattle company.
They have cattle on the property on Pond Road, and they'd like to expand that and bring some here to St. Albans Road.
Okay, interesting.
Only in Wildwood.
Not quite what we had planned. My wife's antique shop went down the drain here. Yeah. Any other business to come before us this evening? I'll accept a motion for adjournment. Second. All in favor that we adjourn, say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Was I supposed to pass these on? Oh, they're sat right there all evening. I'm sorry. I just, okay.